Hi there. It's December 3rd, and I live in snowy New York. I'm very fortunate that my husband and I have not been one of those ones that have been deluged with snow, but just 2.5 hours down the road, they got 4 feet. So, in my mother's area, got between 3 and 4 feet. Um, but that's not our good news. The good news, I thought, I'm just going to I've got good news for you, and I have a request. So if you're listening to this, don't disappear on me. I need your help with something, but I want to share with you some good news. I, uh, I got to talk to one of our friends, Maria, who's on here on occasion. She listens in, and she really recently got some good news. She had to have a little surgery to remove cancer. And the good news is it was totally encapsulated, which means it hasn't spread. And that is good news because she just she wasn't having any symptoms, she wasn't being sick, but she decided it was time to take care of it. And she'd actually, for a good while, had followed the Gerson therapy, and then was able to graduate from that like I did. And yet these lumps were there, and because they're there, you can be concerned. So she was concerned and decided after 5 years she would have those lumps removed. But they were totally encapsulated, which means she's safe, and she was protected, and God allowed her to be protected. So I thought that's good news, and I asked her permission to share that with you. And then my good news, I think I told you about this. Um, that I've been praying that a year ago I'd had an MRI and it showed my gallbladder very enlarged, and it looked like a pomegranate. If you ever opened up a pomegranate and you see all those big seeds in there, well, that's what my gallbladder looked like. So I assumed it was gallstones. But I hadn't been to the doctor in over a year, and I recently started up with a local doctor here, just a GP. And I told her about that. She said, we better get not an MRI. She said, let's just get a sonogram. That's the best way to check out a gallbladder. So they did, and they still saw something there. So they had me meet with a doctor today. So it's been a few weeks, and I had prayed about it. And the Lord had told me, he spoke very distinctly. He said, receive my healing, receive my healing. And I was in a healing room situation where people were praying with me and for me, and one of them said, "May the doctors be confounded." And I thought, I like that. So I've been praying every day. I say, I receive your healing. I receive your healing. May the doctors be confounded. So today when I went, and he was a wonderful doctor. He was a wonderful man. He was just really, he was everything you could want in a doctor. And he listened, he explained things because he's like, well, what symptoms are you having? I'm like, I'm not having any symptoms. He's like, okay. He said, well, this is how the liver. He draw a nice little picture of the stomach and the liver and the gallbladder and the pancreas, and he said, okay, the stomach produces acid to help you digest your food, and the pancreas produces enzymes to help you digest your food, and the liver produces bile to help you digest your food, and the gallbladder is something that just holds the bile. It holds the bile. He was, trying to explain like it's not a necessary organ like a liver or a gallbladder or a liver or a pancreas or the stomach. You kind of need those things. Of course, it's good because God put it there. We know it's good, but he wanted to know it wasn't a big deal if it wasn't there, that everything would still function. I was like, okay, he's setting me up for surgery is what I'm thinking. But he said, um, how do we know the difference between gallstones and polyps? He said, do you remember when they were doing your sonogram, they had you roll from side to side? And they did. They'd have me roll one way and take pictures and roll the other way and take pictures. He said, if those are gallstones, they're loose and they tumble around inside like a dryer. And we would see different positions. But he said, in your case, they stayed against the wall and it went this way like this. So no matter how I moved, the, the lumps went with it. He said, that tells us that they're polyps. He said, yeah, he didn't say we don't like to see those things, but he said, and and that's why we do colonoscopies because if we see any polyps, they can turn into cancer, and we don't like that, so we remove them. He said, "We're not that sure about polyps in gallbladders." He said, "A lot of people have them. A lot of people have polyps in their gallbladder." But he's like, "These are really, really small, so we're not worried about this." He said, "But," and here's where he was confounded, "I have never seen so many." It was the most he had ever seen. I'm like, "Well," I was like, "Yeah," just because I wanted to confound him. But I'm trusting there's more going on than that. He wouldn't do well, he didn't get to see the MRI. I brought it with me and he didn't see it. I wanted him to see it because he's telling me how little these things are. On the MRI from a year ago, they were huge. They looked like seeds of a pomegranate, which tells me that they've shrunk. So he didn't want to do surgery. He said, "We're not going to worry about it. As long as you feel good, it's okay." He said, "If you have any pain, let me know. That changes things." He said, "We'll just keep an eye on it. We'll just do another sonogram in 6 months." And I'm thinking, okay, God, you've got a testimony coming here. In 6 months, I'm trusting God will have done what he's going to do. If they're getting smaller, then they're going to be small and go away. Something's going to happen. So I'm excited about that. Good news. And I thought, we've always been told the word gospel means good news, but I've never looked it up to find out. I just trusted what somebody told me. So I'm going to look up gospel right while we're talking. And in Matthew, this is in the concordance, the Strong's Concordance. And it says gospel, preaching. They were describing Jesus as preaching the gospel of the kingdom. In Matthew 4:23, Matthew 9:35, preaching the gospel of the kingdom. And this is a quoting Jesus saying, "The poor have the gospel preached to them." And another place where he says, "This gospel of the kingdom." So let's look at when Jesus said this, and they're all, see, 2098. Let's look up 2098. This is going to be in, it's not in Hebrew, it's in Greek. It's going to be in Greek because it's in the New Testament. Matthew 24:14. Let's look that up. It's on, I can't look up 20, that's where we'd find it, Matthew 24:14, and the number is 2098. So I got to look up 2098. Let's find out what, like I said, we've always heard it means good news, but let's look it up and make sure that that's what it says. Don't take my word for it. Let's look it up in the book. 2098. Here it is. Euangelion. Euangelion. That's the Greek word. A good message. The gospel is a good message. Good news. Okay. Well, now I saw it with my own eyes, so I believe it. Not that I didn't before, but I do like to double check things because not everything we've heard has been accurate. Sometimes things are tilted a little to support what somebody's trying to say. And I don't want that. I don't want that for me, and I don't want that for you. So that's why I share. When I learn something, I want to share it with you because I don't want any of us to be deceived. They say in the last days, people will be deceived, or they'll try to be, the enemy's going to try to deceive people. We don't want to be deceived. So let's look up Matthew 24:24, as long as I got my Bible here, and see how it was used. What was the context it was used in? I think this is talking about end times. Oh my. Huh. There we go. Matthew 24:24. Well, let's start back a little bit. It looks like Jesus is speaking a lot here. Oh, he is. He's talking about end times. We'll just do the chapter of 24, okay? And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. Now, here's something that I heard taught last year that I was like, what? And that is, even though Jesus was referred to as a carpenter, they're saying that he might have actually been more of a craftsman or maybe even a stone worker. And the reason why is because now when I give you examples, lots of times they involve food. I find food examples to give you because that's what I work with. I am familiar with food. I use it all the time, and I teach cooking. So it makes sense that I would talk to you in terms of something that I understand. And if you look at Jesus, he never gives examples of anything having to do with wood, but he does give examples of rocks. And if he was a stonemason, which was very common in Bethlehem, or not Bethlehem, Nazareth. In Nazareth, it was very common to be a stonemason because of what was in the area. And so for him, and so when his disciples were talking to him, they went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see, and as if to say, look at this building. Well, the building was made out of carved stones, and they were impressed, and they were wondering if he was impressed by the stonework. They weren't pointing out wooden things, they were pointing out stone things. So this teaching that I heard last year by the pastor of the church was referring to all the times where he refers to stone and rocks, and other people referred to stone and rocks, and yet they never talked to him about wood and stuff if he was a true carpenter. So I thought, well, I still like the idea of him being a carpenter, but things are open to interpretation, because when somewhere along the line, someone may have thought, well, that's what those words meant. They meant, as a craftsman, maybe they thought that meant carpenter. I don't know, but I just thought that was interesting. And I'm not carving that in stone because we just don't know, but it could be likely. And Jesus said to them, don't you see these things? Truthfully, I say to you, there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And I always thought, gee, that didn't happen. You know how when they have that Wailing Wall in Jerusalem? And and I thought, well, that didn't happen. Scripture said one stone won't be on top of another. I found out later that wall isn't from the temple. I thought that was a wall that was left of the temple. It's not. It's a wall left from the wall. It's a wall like a fence wall, okay? It's not the temple wall. It's more like a fence wall that still remains, and that's where they go for prayer time. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So all the stones were thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no man deceive you. Oh, that's just what we were talking about. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, and see that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. And these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. I'm sorry, I didn't know we were getting into this. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom, this good message of the kingdom, and this is the second place it was used, shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto the nations, and then shall the end come. And when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then, if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Now, I thought it was supposed to be 24, 24. Isn't that what I read before? It was supposed to be 20. That was 24, and I don't see the thing about good news. Maybe that was 14. That's where I used it before. Okay, 24, 14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all the nations, and then shall the end come. I had somebody once not want to be prayed for. I was in the grocery and something was going on. They had something going on, and I offered to pray for them. And when I asked to put a hand, may I lay my hand on you? They got really nervous, really nervous. And they're like, no, no, don't touch me. Don't touch me. I was like, okay. I didn't know what the concern was, but they were afraid of getting an evil spirit or something like that. They were afraid of getting a wrong download. And I'm thinking, well, then you wouldn't want me to pray for you. I mean, you don't have to put a hand on somebody, and I respected them and certainly didn't. But I was thinking about that. So that person was, well, because they didn't know me. Yeah, if you don't know somebody, I guess that makes sense. But it just made me think of that time that somebody happened, like, don't touch me. I don't want any weird stuff, but it's okay if you pray for me. So, yeah, I don't want to be going around in fear. Let's see, shalom. Well, hello, shalom to you too. I think it's Mazeret, I think. Good to see you. I saw you made a comment on my grandson's little video the other day. Uh, and she said, "Me too, Susan." She doesn't trust, Meseret's saying she wants to know the truth and who it is. She says, "Me too, Susan. Unless I know the pastor, I don't let them put hands on me." Oh, there you go. That's right. So, well, that's it. I just wanted to share that little bit. I wanted to share that. Oh, and here's something else. Tomorrow, this came up kind of quickly. I have a tooth up here that's been infected, and I've been praying over it and trying to, get it to heal. It's not healed yet, so it's actually got an infection. And I saw the X-ray, and all the bone above it is gone, and it's almost into the sinus cavity, and it's like that's getting kind of nasty. So it's got to be taken care of. And in talking with the doctor, he said it's a three rooted tooth. Okay, it's got three roots. However, and it had a root canal 14 years ago, long before I did Gerson, because Gerson doesn't like root canals. But the person who did the root canal didn't know that there's actually a fourth small root. It has the three full roots like it's supposed to, but it's got one half root. That's just the way that tooth grew. And it's this root that's because, they removed these roots when they did the root canal because they didn't know about this root. They missed it. This root has become infected. And that's where the infection has come from. And now there's an infection up here above the tooth. And the only way I would know, because there's no root in there, is that the teeth on either side have become sensitive temperature-wise, and it's become tough to chew on that side because of it. So what they were going to do is go in through the gum back here. Instead of going in through the tooth, they're going to go in through the gum and clean out the root this way. But I got to thinking about it, and I thought, I think I should get that tooth out of there. It's a dead tooth. It's root. There's all that infection in there. And it's not good to have an infection in your tooth like that because it could get up into your brain or into your heart, stuff like that. So I thought, I guess it's time. I guess it's time to take that tooth out, which is a little challenging because it's getting really hard to chew because I'm missing teeth over here as well. So if I'm missing teeth here and missing a tooth here, I don't know how I'm going to chew. Yeah, we'll have to figure that one out. But I just thought it better to get that tooth out. So I was supposed to have the root canal next week, and I called my dentist and told him what was going on, that I've changed my mind. I don't want the root canal. I want to have this tooth removed. They said, "Oh, you can get that done right in our office." I'm like, "Really? I didn't know that." "Yeah." So, I'm going in tomorrow to get my tooth extracted. So, please keep me lifted up in prayer if you don't mind. I would appreciate it. I'd like everything to go smoothly. I'd like the infection to be contained and eliminated, removed, that the infection would be, uh, oh, what's the word? We want to kill that infection and we want to keep it contained so it doesn't spread, and that it would all go smoothly. Because the last time I had a tooth removed, I ended up in the ER. In the, I ended up in the, um, where was it? ICU. I ended up in ICU. That was 4 years ago. And it was funny because clove essential oil, no, I didn't try clove essential oil. I didn't know about it. It's a little late now, but, I'm just gonna get that tooth out. So, I'll use the clove essential oil to help it heal. I think that's a good idea. I don't have any. I'd have to get some. What do you do? Just kinda rub it on the gum up there? Is that what you do? Um, so, yeah, the last time but it wasn't caused by the actual tooth removal, it was caused by medication that they put me on to prevent bleeding, and this was, yeah, 4 years ago. And it's funny because I felt fine that day, but what they never told me about that medication was not to continue drinking water. And so because it acts to shut down your kidneys, so if you're drinking water, it's just going into your system and never getting removed and peed out. And because it was just and the more it goes into your blood, the more diluted your blood becomes. And my blood had become diluted, so diluted that I ended up being in a lot of pain the next day, and I was nauseous and weak, and all these things were going on, and I thought, something's not right. Something's not right. And I told Chris I needed to go to the hospital, and he took me to the urgent care, which I'm glad he did because they got me into the hospital. Because this was during COVID. This was during the beginning of COVID. Um, number of months in, and it was hard to get into places, but I went to the urgent care, and they could see I was having major problems, and they called an ambulance, and they got me into a ICU at the hospital, and they figured out they could see that my sodium had dropped, but they couldn't figure out why, and that took a few days to figure out that it was because of the medication that I was on and what had happened. So that will not happen this time. We just want everything to go smoothly. Don't want excessive pain. um, protect my microbiome, which now I have to take all these antibiotics to help fight the infection, for the next week. I started them today, but I'm thankful that God has those things on hand for us to help us in our weakness. So I don't have it all figured out. She says, yes, she rubbed it on the gums and she mixed it with coconut oil because it's burning. Oh, thank you for telling me that. I would not have known to mix it. And because I do think of clove oil as being very strong. So good. And what did you have an infected tooth? Is that what you were using it for too? I just think it's since it's a dead tooth with no root, I think it'd be important to get it out of there. I don't think it's good to have dead stuff in your body. And I thought, I should feel a lot better too if I can get that infection out. Look how long I've been dealing with that infection in my body. My body's been working hard trying to get rid of it. Just couldn't do it. So, all right. So that's it. That's it for today. And since this is the Advent season, I'm going to try and get on here. I can't promise every day, but I'm going to try because I know it's nice to have a little something to think about and a little devotion each day. So I'm going to scoot because it's time to fix dinner. So we'll talk to you later. Have a good night.